Hey UKPI, how you doing? Good to have you.
Hello? Speak
Hello.
up. Oh. Did somebody get sniped?
Do we need to get rid of him?
Speak up now.
Oh, I can join now, can I?
Hey, is that Dan? Dan Winfield?
You can
Hello?
join any time, sir, if there's a gap.
I've tried several times. I just watched you on the Miles Davies thing,
Oh, yeah.
and thought it was quite amusing.
Okay.
I thought you got kind of trashed big time.
Really? Oh, any particular reason? Have you got anything to justify that perception?
Any particular reason? Because I come from that neck of the woods, so I know exactly what and where Miles was when he took that video.
Okay, but how does that affect the perception of being trashed?
Because you talked about there being a mile between the bridges, each bridge.
No, that's not what I said.
It is exactly what you said.
I said there's a mile.
So that you should have seen the curve, and no, there is 0.9 miles.
Yeah, there's a mile between the
South Queensferry is only about a mile long.
Yeah, well, that's
And
what Anthony said, wasn't it? It was between 35 and 40.
And all three bridges are within that very, very small town. The very first bridge, the first bridge that you see is a huge metal structure, which is the rail bridge, but it's quite a narrow structure and formed in a completely different way to the two other road bridges, which were behind. So what Riley was saying was you should be able to see kind of the bottom of each bridge, and that's just so not true.
Well, I demonstrated it using a round mile on the curvature calculator, and it said that there was a difference of accumulated curve over the 29th to the 30th mile of 40 feet. And
you were using Google Earth, which brings into account the curvature, which you seem to disbelieve. So why were you using Google Earth?
No, you've mistaken. I wasn't using Google Earth for this point. The point I was making was that if the photograph is taken on a round sphere, then the three bridges at the distance of 29 to 30 miles should have an accumulated curve difference of 40 feet. And we don't see evidence of that in the picture.
So you're saying you weren't using Google Earth to mention a turbine and this, that, and the other?
Well, are we jumping topics now, or are we getting closure on the point you were making about the bridges?
I'm bringing them all together in the one.
Let's not do it with a sneeze. Let's not do it with a sneeze. Let's do it with systematic, like working our way through the procedure. Right. Your first point is that the bridges were misrepresented, and I demonstrated that between the 29th and the 30th mile there should be at least 40 feet of curvature, but the photograph doesn't show any evidence of any curvature. How was that wrong?
Between the bridges, it's just under a mile.
Right. So I used a mile. What's wrong with that?
Oh, so there's going to be curve between in that mile, is there?
Between the 29th mile and the 30th mile, it's
there's going to be curve between the three bridges.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
when they're only a mile apart, but you're going to see that curve.
It's not the first mile, it's the accumulation of the curvature between the 29th mile and the 30th mile.
Hold on, can I just get a bit of clarity? So are you suggesting that because there's 0.9 of a mile and Anthony used a mile, are you quibbling over this 500 feet between the bridges in terms of the accumulated drop?
Let's not just... I won't quibble about that, no.
But that was
just call it a mile.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Do we see the curve? Do we
just
see
let me get to the end of my point. Sorry, bear with me. Sorry, you don't need to talk all over me. I hadn't quite finished talking. So the only reason I know that they're 0.9 of a mile is because you brought it up. I didn't know that till you said it. So you're now saying, well, I'm not quibbling about it. Is it because this minor difference between 29 and 30 miles and 29 and 29.9 miles isn't actually really worth worrying about at all?
Well, no, let's just call it a mile.
Well, that's what he did do, and you quibbled about it. That's my point.
What Riley was implying during that conversation was there was a mile between each bridge. But actually, there's less than a mile between the 3 bridges.
I see. Were you under the impression there was a mile between each bridge, Anthony?
Do you want to present my screen?
Sure.
So what's difficult with this claim that he's making against me is that the bridges are not parallel; they're on an angle. So am I presenting now, Nath?
Yeah,
I can't see anything.
You'll have to press the thumbprint at the bottom of the screen.
All right.
Can you now see it?
Yeah.
So if you can see that at its worst, the distance between them is 1.3 miles. At its least, the distance between them is about 1.7 of a mile. But we're talking about the middle of the bridge. So just as a rough approximation, without getting too technical or too over critical, it's 1.05 miles. I don't really see your point.
There's that dog again.
I don't really see your point, because you can argue semantics over the distance, but it's still about a mile, and that's what I demonstrated, the 29th to the 30th mile.
That was your whole argument, was the fact that you should actually see the curve in the bridge. Why do we see a 400-foot mountain or hill, if you like, below the stanchion? Yet we still see that.
It wasn't my whole point. You're mistaken. I brought up 5 points, 4 of which are itemized on screen, and I can't remember the 5th one. And this was just one of several points. So my whole argument didn't revolve around this. And if that's your perception, perhaps you didn't see the hangout or all of it.
But did Miles not debunk every single one?
No. He hasn't considered collimation because he didn't know what collimation was before we spoke about it, and he dismissed it with a hand wave whilst we were doing the hangout. Miles' claim of 500 meters is exaggerated. It's 300 to 400, and I'll give him the 400, but 400 to 500 is a significant difference. It's actually the 300, but so what? I'll give him the 400, but it's still exaggerated, and it's misrepresenting the audience to think that there's a bigger disparity than what there actually is. But if you exaggerate your claim, generally speaking, that generally makes your claim fallacious. The bridges don't line up on a ball, but they clearly line up in the picture. And there isn't an accurate linear relationship between the effects of refraction with 2 objects over such a big distance, as I demonstrated. There was a 5th one as well, and I can't remember what it was now. I'll have to think to put it in there. But it wasn't all. He didn't debunk any of these claims. He just handwave dismissed them.
I don't think it was the fact that he dismissed them. I think that you talked over him when he was trying to explain that what you should be seeing is quite a big hill above the stanchion of the bridge in the background. Yet
Correct.
What you were seeing was a 400-meter bloody object lower than a 210.
So let's be clear, right? Your claim was that didn't Miles debunk all of the points that you made? Well, he didn't even know about collimation, and he handwave dismissed it. That's not debunking. That's just disagreeing with no evidence to support it.
Yeah, but you did go on to talk about theodolites and the sort.
That's the collimation point.
And not understanding that theodolites actually do angles and not levels, you'll need a dummy level to get a level for that.
Yeah, but
In civil engineering, you
you've
don't use a theodolite.
You've misunderstood my point about collimation, and he did not respond. He does not have any evidence to support the perception that it has no effect. So that's not debunked.
Okay.
Moving to the second point, he claims that the mountains are in excess of 500 meters, but they're actually 3, maybe 4, but not 5. Now that is an exaggeration.
No, the tallest one was, I think, 510, 520, I think.
Yeah, but that's not the one that's behind the stanchion of the bridge, which is what we're referencing. So that is exaggeration. He didn't debunk that.
And all the hills in the background.
Yeah, but we're not talking about all of the hills. We're talking about
each one is at different heights. Well, you can take a line right across, and you'll see the larger ones compared to the smaller ones. The one directly where you're talking about,
which is his claim,
might have been 400. Might have been 400, but
well,
the tallest one was over 500.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the tallest one. We're talking about the one relative to this stanchion that he identifies in his video, but he's claiming it's 500 plus meters, but it's either 3 or 4. I'll give him 4 just for the sake of moving on. It's definitely not 5. Now, the problem is that makes it an exaggeration and a misrepresentation, and he didn't debunk that.
You used Google Earth to basically show you exactly the peaks of each hill, so you should know that one of them was by far over 500 meters.
That's not true.
The lowest one.
Hang on, stop.
Yeah.
Let me just.
Anthony, mate, I'm going to do one because I feel like shit. Anthony,
yeah.
Cheers for defending my honour, sir, or at least my integrity. I appreciate that. It's a weak argument, but cheers for standing up for that, mate. I do appreciate it. I'll catch up with you guys later, and I'm going to do a little bit of further stats on that data, just do some rank correlation coefficients to just kind of exemplify the point of how skewed the observation is to what it should be on a ball in terms of the effect of relative distance on curvature. I'll try and get it done the next day or so, mate. But
cool.
Take it easy, guys.
All right, Ruff. Laters.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks a million.
All right. So, with regards to your claim that the mountains are actually 500, let's just address that, because I did go through this on Miles' Hangout. So I'm assuming that you didn't actually pay attention. The highest possible mountain along the line of sight that we're talking about is the highest possible is around about, zoom in a little bit so we can get it shown. As I move up and down here, you can see he's not going to see any of these peaks here because they're too far away and they're of the same size. They're obstructed by this mountain. And that's only 347. And that's if you can see that one at all. So it's like, well, if you're going to say that in somehow these are 500 feet, I'll say no, they're not. The highest possible that you can see is about 350.
He named each peak.
Yeah, and I said that he's not seeing that far.
Going by Peak Finder.
Yeah,
going by Peak Finder.
Yeah, going by, it doesn't mean he's seeing that far. The highest he can see is 300 to 400 feet. And he hasn't been able to do that because he doesn't know how deep.
Why can't he see that far? Why can't he see that far?
Atmospheric moisture, vapor,
compact
humidity,
camera.
pollution.
I think he did this over a 2-day period, didn't he? I'm sure he said that he tried it over several days and got a great. I mean, it is some distance from Traprain Law to the bridges, let alone to the background.
That's right.
That is a massive, massive difference.
Well, it's 30 miles, and it's the same distance as my Hoy Lake to Blackpool Tower observation, which wasn't behind the curve of the Earth. So I'm familiar with the distance.
Hey,
right. Well, and he proved that the hills went behind something that is so much smaller. 210 to the top of the the crossing bridge.
Right, but the point is that he's claiming that the land at on the horizon is greater than 500. He says that he's referring to some other mountains that are not relevant, but his claim is that the vertical part of the bridge is 210 meters. The height of the hills is greater than 500, which is at its absolute peak. But the problem is when he's referencing the stanchion, he's referencing the land behind it, and that's what his comparison is to. Now, this land behind it, according to what Google Earth reliably tells us, apparently, is no higher than 350 meters. But the problem is, if that's 350 meters behind, and this is 210, it isn't greater than 500 meters, which is the way he represents his claim. And that isn't debunked, mate. That's the
one on your the one on your left-hand side, the highest one on your left-hand side, if you pull back to the his Miles' actual photograph, the one on the left-hand side is over 500.
Sorry, we're back to the beginning.
Yeah.
We've just gone through this twice. I mean, my patience is wearing a bit thin for it. He's already explained twice. That's not the hill he is referencing. Who cares what the other hill is? That's not the one he's using to represent his argument with.
So you're just going to pick and choose hills?
Oh, sorry.
No.
He's representing
you're not
the difference. You're now talking
choose
over me.
height.
Listen, he's made it twice. I'm now making this point a third time for you. So what's the issue? He's not referencing the hill on the far left, is he?
What he's doing is exaggerating the overall height of the biggest possible hill to somehow represent the claim that he is making, which the stanchion of the bridge is somehow too big or too small relative to the land behind it. But the problem is he's put that number in there referencing this claim, but actually he's referencing the mountain over here somewhere, which has got nothing to do with the claim he's making. So yeah, you can argue for him that there is a mountain there at some distance of around about that height, but the claim is to do with this stanchion and the height of the horizon. So wherever you pick this, you're not going to be able to argue that the height of the horizon over there, it's relative to the height that's behind it, because that's the line of sight that he's using as his reference. That's my point. It's exaggerated.
Anyway, Anthony, that's the fourth time this point's been made. So I'm happy to move on, regardless of UKPI's decision to distract and defend this misrepresentation, which is what it is.
So, and the final point that I made was that there's not a linear relationship between the effects of the atmosphere the way he thinks there is. So just because you can draw a straight line through the top of this to the horizon there, I demonstrated that Skunk Bay, that the thing in the middle ground and the thing in the background are independent of each other, and he didn't accept it. So I then presented Soundly's work, which showed the same thing, and he doesn't want to accept that either. But that doesn't make it debunked. So going back to your original assertion that Miles smacked my ass or whatever it was that he said, he hasn't debunked any of these points. He's just hand-waved dismissed them and disagreed. Well, he's entitled to do that, but that doesn't make it debunked. Debunked means proved wrong, and he hasn't done that. He's just dismissed it. Well, that's okay. He can do that. That's the whole point of what he's going to try and defend his position. But for you to assert that I got my ass kicked and then come on and try and re-have the hangout, I'm not being funny, but you're going to get your ass kicked easily, because I've just had the hangout and I know what I'm talking about. 30 miles is not that far.
It's quite a distance.
No, do you want me to show you what 30 miles is in real world? I'll show you a 30 miles that's completely inconsistent with this.
Are you going to show me on Google? Are you going to show me on Google Earth?
No,
because that takes into account the curve, which you keep on using.
Here's an observation
Sorry, hold on. Let's just stick to that. That was another point he made before you move on. Yes, fine, Anthony. I'll stick it up on screen for the audience.
So this is another 30-mile observation, and it's supposed to be a 510-foot tower, and it's supposed to be virtually completely gone by the curvature of the Earth. So this is 30 miles. It's the same distance as what the claim of Miles is. But Mick West himself says that that's how much should be seen at 30 miles. So you're saying how far away these towers are, and they're really far, these bridges. But actually, in the context, I've got direct evidence of the same distance, and that thing is what we actually see. And that's not the same as what we should be seeing. So if you're going to claim that the curvature of the Earth or that it's such a far distance and it's very impressive and that Miles proved this or that, I'm going to say no, because even 30 miles away, this is only 400 feet tall, right? In terms of meters, that's what? Is it 160 or something like that, meters? So it's much smaller than the bridges that he's looking at, and that's what it's supposed to be if we live on a sphere. at 30 miles away. But that's what we actually see. And this light at the top, this light at the front here is on it's on the ballroom tower, which is like 2 stories high. But we also see the roller coaster on the promenade, and that's the light on top of the roller coaster, and that's the light on top of the mirror ball, which is only 40 feet above the road. So if you're going to claim that
what about the light below it?
So the tower's about 120 meters. Coincidentally, the amount that Miles exaggerated the differential between these hills.
What about the light that we can't see?
What light that we can't see?
Oh, here we go. Sorry. Right. So the distance isn't massive, and the differential represented by Miles was misrepresentative of the actual observation that he was using as an example. You've also got a second issue, it would seem, with Google. So let's move on to your issue with Google.
I don't have any issue with Google, but you seem to keep on using Google Earth to debunk your own claim, really, which is a bit silly because Google uses the globe and has a curve, and you use.
Do you have a globe model that we
Hold
can
on,
use?
hold on, Jose. Can you let him finish? Can you let him finish?
Why do you keep on doing that? Now, I don't mean to seem disrespectful.
But
why do you keep on using the globe to try and make your point?
I wasn't making any point. I was challenging the point that Miles was making, and I was saying that Miles was getting things wrong. Now, you think that Miles has debunked me at all stages? No, Miles hasn't debunked anything. Miles has just hand waved.
Hold on, Anthony. Let's not. You don't need to. Right. Okay. So his answer is he's not making any claims. He's debunking the assertions made by Miles Davis. Okay.
Yep.
So back to your original assertion that Miles had debunked all my points. He didn't debunk any of them. He just hand waved dismissed them, and that's not the same thing. So I'll invite you to retract your comment and just leave, because at this point you look like
I look like a what?
a dick.
All right.
Do you want to retract your
When
statement?
Why would I do that?
Because Miles didn't debunk anything. You asserted that Miles debunked all of my arguments, and he didn't. He hand waved dismissed them and didn't know about one of them.
Is that in the same way as you keep on using theodolites to?
Oh, we're on to a new subject. Okay.
To mention
new subject.
To bring
Why are we changing the subject?
Level.
Why are you changing the subject? Why are you changing the subject? So you've come on and made some assertions. Obviously, for the person that finds those assertions to be incorrect, hadn't finished talking. So for the person whose assertions you have tried to claim are incorrect, have now, for the second time, first time you watched and obviously didn't pay enough attention, now it's been demonstrated to you personally, and upon doing so you want to change the subject to something else.
I guess you've not
excuse me.
Watched it,
so
Nathan.
Anthony has politely asked you, while you talk all over me because you're unbelievably rude, he's politely asked you to retract your bullshit comments that were incorrect, not move on to theodolites.
Theodolites were mentioned during the...
Yes, we can move on once you concede.
Once I concede?
The point we're making here, the point we're talking about is that your claim was that I got debunked on all my points. And I've just demonstrated to you that a hand wave dismissal was his position, and that's not debunking.
Yes, and you tried to use civil engineering equipment.
Oh, we're doing it again, are we? So, no. Listen up. He wants you to retract your bullshit. He's annoyed. He's been very courteous. I'm getting annoyed on his behalf because you've made a load of statements that were wrong. He's then proven them to be wrong and you want to move on to something else. So, that's not going to happen until you go, oh, my bad. Yeah, I thought Miles had done a good job, when in fact he hadn't. He had hand-wave dismissed them, I reasserted his crappy points that he gave a hand-wave dismissal to, and I've now been shown to be incorrect as well. That's what we're waiting for. A polite gentleman would do so. It seems you're rude and would rather talk over me when I point this out and move on to a different subject, which we may well do once you concede.
you ask for people to give you evidence, and you decline when the evidence is
No. Stop it. Your point was that I was debunked by Miles on all of my points that I made. I've just gone through them one by one with you and demonstrated that he didn't debunk any of them. He just dismissed them. That's not the same as debunking. And I'm asking you to acknowledge that and retract what you said, or just leave because you are beginning to look like a dick. That's what I said.
That's amongst those options, sir. Is not move on to theodolites. It's be a man. Concede your nonsense, and then we'll move on.
right. We'll just move on then.
No, you'll concede, be a man. Now I'll give you a different option. You'll be a man and concede your nonsense, or I'll kick you out, because that isn't one of the options moving on until you concede, asshole.
That's swearing, isn't it?
Yeah, you're starting to test my patience. You've made a load of assertions. You just want to move on to another one, so we all forget about the nonsense you've come in and spewed. Well, we're not. We're not tolerating it. I haven't finished speaking. We're not tolerating it. He's politely asked you twice to retract your nonsense so we can move on. Why are you dragging this out? Why are you making yourself seem so pathetic? It seems sad that you can't just concede you're wrong.
Right, Nathan. Politely ask me then.
I have done numerous times.
I'm asking Nathan to politely
Why
ask
the hell would I ask you for anything? I'm not the one you've come in and made a load of assertions about. Anthony has asked you twice.
You're the one that keeps on harping on about do this, do that. I'm just saying move on.
Yeah, and I'm saying you can't move on until such time as you retract your claim that Miles the Liar Davis debunked all my points, because that wasn't true. I realise that you've now left the group, but thank you very much for your stay in Hotel Nathan. Do come again.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
These people are pathetic.
Yep.
It makes my blood boil. Why can't they just concede? I was wrong. I said you'd got smashed. I should have read his comment from the chat. I just watched Anthony get his ass handed to him. Right. Okay. Well, I want to come on the panel and rub it in his face. Okay, here's the link. Just didn't know to refresh when the show starts, then come in claiming that I couldn't give you the link. Again, assumptive asshole. No. The link goes out when the show goes live, and you obviously tuned in before it was live and didn't refresh your page. So I had to tell you to refresh your page, and then you got instantly in, like a dick, making your assertions that you were blocked or some shite. Wrong! Just like you were wrong about Anthony. And it took us, how long's it been? About 30 minutes dragging you through it, kicking and screaming while you make the same nonsense assertions that Miles made, because you're stupid and believe people like Miles in the face of evidence. Even when it's presented to you, you don't want to accept it and concede, you want to move on. Well, no, cognitive dissonance. Accept that you are incorrect. Miles has actually provided us with an exceptional flat earth proof. He keeps telling you morons that it's a globe proof, and you keep believing him. Hence, Anthony has to dismantle your assertions in front of a couple of hundred people while you go, no, let's move on. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. I see you in my comments, UKPI. Now I know how pathetic you are. I'll be damn sure to point that out next time you comment. You're a pathetic individual. A man would have conceded. You are a mouse.